Hi, this is Guy Lane from Vita Sapien. This is my fourth day at COP28 in Dubai. Um, I really think that if you are in the climate and ecological space, this is the party to be at right now. There's a lot going on here. So just about my mission and then a few other observations about what's going on re-COP. So later today at 2 p.m. I am going to do a launch of Vita Religion in this pavilion where I'm sitting right now. I have here a press release that I wrote when I was in Australia, and I had a journalist friend of mine edit it for me. I've gone and added this page of blurb on the back, which is actually a very well written blurb. If you want to read that blurb, you go onto the Vita Sapien website, so vitasapien.org/media. You'll find the press release there. So Vita is a registered religious institution. There is no gods, crystals, or woo-woo in this religion. This is a religion devoted to nature. I conceived this idea on the 18th of August 2016 that 80% of the world's population follows some sort of religion, so it's obviously popular. And from my reading, none of the religions were ecologically sustainable. They didn't have ecologically sustainable teaching. And I thought, well, if we're going to have religions and we're going to have religious people, we really need a religion devoted to Gaia. Gaia as in Greek goddess of the earth, Gaia as in Gaia theory, Gaia hypothesis, Gaia as in Mother Nature. And so that was my original conception back in 2016. And in 2020, I incorporated and got the Charity Commission to approve what is Vita Religion. And so a few years has passed since the incorporation, and this is, I think, a prime venue to actually do an official launch. I don't have any money, I don't have any resources. I got a press release and I'm going to use a public space, and if I can get half a dozen journalists there, ideally with TV cameras, then I'll call that a success. There are thousands of journalists here, so after I've finished this coffee and just my little morning chill out, I'm going to get busy handing out my flyers. After that, I've got another 2 days here. I want to meet Indigenous people to get their feedback and input into the work that I'm doing with Vita Sapien. And I want to continue to hopefully track down some institution or individual that can fund $1 million over 3 years for me to set up an operational centre with a film and recording studio, so I can just start producing a stream of content. Anyway, that's the big picture. So just one other thing I want to talk about while I'm here, COP stuff. OPEC, oil producing economic countries, controls I think around 70 to 80% of the world's oil supply. This is world news at the moment. Has just been busted. The chairman, I think, or the head of the organisation, sent round a letter to member states, telling them that this scaremongering letter, saying that they were freaking out because the COP process was now talking about phase out of fossil fuels. Phase out is, get rid of the fossil fuel industry. And the letter was basically recommending or coaching member countries not to accept any language in the communique, the final communique at the end of the COP process. That included the words phase out or phase down. The language that they want, or the concept that they're pitching, is that burning fossil fuels is not a climate change problem. The unabated release of CO2 from the combustion of fossil fuels is the problem. So the idea is that they can continue to exploit search for, find, exploit, burn fossil fuels with this hypothetical view that there'll be some sort of a imaginary machine at the end of the smokestack that captures the CO2 and somehow pumps it underground. Now, I'm not doubting that that is technically possible to do that in a kind of laboratory setting or maybe on a pilot plant somewhere. But the idea that you're going to have fossil fuel sources, the actual generators burning the fossil fuels, the geological structures suitable for storing the CO2 and the demand for energy all happily co-located in a roundabout sort of area that you can actually feasibly do that is just insane. It's just madness. Even the head of the International Energy Agency says that it's nonsensical. So somewhere between realpolitik and real science, there's going to be some sort of a compromise, and it's always going to favour the fossil fuel industry. This process, this COP28, is not going to do anything meaningful except to push the needle of the language in the communiques forward somewhat, maybe. And we're in the last years have been able to decide the fate of human civilization. If we continue to burn, if we continue to increase the amount of fossil fuels that we burn, which is the pathway, So, one of the things that's coming out of this COP is that there's going to be a tripling of renewable energy put on the ground. And I was talking to a girl the other day, American girl that works for some climate policy initiative, I think it's called, and they put out this annual review of climate finance. And I was talking to her about this, and she said, yeah, there's going to be this massive surge in investment for renewable energy, massive surge. It's just going to go zoom straight up because we're going to triple the amount of renewable energy on the planet. But at the same time, we're also going to continue to increase the amount of fossil fuels that we burn, right? And this is the paradox. And at the moment, or over the last decade or so, the huge, massive build-out of fossil fuels, of renewable energy on the planet, huge solar farms, massive wind farms, all that's really done is to keep pace with growth in energy demand, right? So we've got a 17 terawatt energy system. So a global energy system that is consuming 17 terawatts of energy, right? Continuous flow. I'm quoting Nate Hagens here. I hope I'm getting his numbers right. Okay. And that 17 terawatts is increasing by around 3% per annum as the global economy grows. So as we continue to build out these renewable energy equipment, all of the build out of renewables is keeping pace with the increase in new energy demand, which means that there is still this huge proportion of the energy being provided by renewables. I was watching a CNN interview a little while ago with the head of, I think, Exxon. And he said, look, 20 years ago, 80% of the world's energy was supplied by fossil fuels. And today, he says, 80% of the world's energy is provided by fossil fuels. And I think it was Farik, I can't remember his name anyway, the journalist. He says, so what do you foresee for 2050? And the Exxon boss, he says, 80% of the world's energy provided by fossil fuels. Now listen to this. If in 2050, 80% of the world's energy is still being produced by fossil fuels, that means that there will be twice as much fossil fuel being burnt in 2050 as there is today. Because if you grow the global economy at 3% per annum, it doubles every 23 years or so. So we're going to have twice as big an economy still being powered by 80% renewables. That's what the fossil fuel industry wants. All right? And from my reading of the climate science, of the paleoclimatic data, understanding the process that led to the Permian extinction, for example, we can't do that. You're going to trigger the runaway greenhouse effect. We may have already passed those tipping points, and yet this is what this insane industry led by these these omnipaths, these hugely powerful, hugely wealthy corporations and individuals. That's what they're trying to do to the planet. And what have we got standing in the way of that insanity is the environmental movement and the climate COP process, which this year has been held in a petro-state and headed up by an oil man. So, is our civilization gonna survive? I don't know. My angle on all this is Vita Sapien organization. And Vita Sapien organization is approaching the climate and ecological crisis through the intersection of environmental science and ecological spirituality. So there are two main programs: LifeWise Philosophy, which is the symbol of the hand in the middle, and Vita Religion, which is the symbol with the Nautilus. So Vita Religion is a registered religious institution devoted to the living planet, and LifeWise Philosophy is the secular, non-religious, sustainable life philosophy. And there are other initiatives and programs in there and more to be developed. And what I'm trying to do here at COP, once I get this Vita Religion launched out the way today, is to hopefully find somebody that can fund this operation and really start getting these ideas out into the public. Because at the moment, Vita Sapien organization is me, two other directors, a website, some videos, some handouts, and that's it. We don't have purchase yet. So I'm here hoping to get purchase, hoping to get traction, hoping to be able to scale this, because this institution and this concept is unique. There's nothing like it. I'm not saying that there's no institutions that advance eco-spirituality. There are, but my conception of this is to make eco-spirituality a household, to make Vita Sapien a household name, a household brand. Is that the expression? To actually have a brand that takes eco-spirituality to every corner of the planet, rather than these tiny little niche institutions as it is now. Anyway, that's what I'm doing here, and I'll tell you some more stories about this later on.